So, in last week's newsletter, I wrote about this concept of spiral dynamics, which was first created by Claire Graves, who was a contemporary of Abraham Maslow. They were friends, but whereas Maslow, we have his sort of triangle, his hierarchy of needs, Graves felt that human evolution and development had no end, that self actualization was just sort of the beginning, and that it was an animating spiral. And then a man named Don Beck took the theory and advanced it. And then Ken Wilber took it up. And I wrote about it because it's the best model. All models are not perfect, but they're useful for this moment that we find ourselves in. And it argues, or it sort of places all of human development on this spiral, saying that all parts of the spiral are mostly present in us at all times, and we're all capable of the different levels of the spiral. And it's a really useful system when we see these moments where it feels like we're in chaos and we're breaking apart, because Wilbur would argue that that's the moment where we start to transcend and include what came before, that it's sort of the birth of a new awareness, consciousness, perspective, the ability to get a little bit above this moment in time. And to that end, it's a really beautiful model. It's in my bio. Go to Substack to read the more comprehensive overview. But essentially, it starts with beige, the first, which is the animalistic, this sort of where we are when we're newborns, where we just need to get our needs met. This is about securing food, security, water, safety. Then we moved on to the purple, which is the mystical, animistic, where we understood ourselves to be in conversation with some force bigger than ourselves. And again, these continue to be present with us today in each of us. This isn't just defining a group, but some are more present in different parts of the world at different times. Then we get into red, which is all about sort of feudal empire, protective impulses, this instinct to sort of be strong and powerful and protect. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of that in the world. Then we get into blue, which is the birth of justice, order, hierarchy, religion. And every single one of these states has sort of its positive side and its negative side. And the negative side is when it pushes us to the next level, because we start to create resistance, oppositional resistance, to get to this next state. So that's blue, a lot of blue in the world. Then we get to orange, which is the birth of science, this instinct to control and explain the world. This is the birth of medicine, rationalism, growth, economic growth. You could say that the sort of negative edge is consumerism, exploitation, endless growth, more, capitalism. Then from orange, we get green, which is this idea of egalitarianism, that we're all the same, that every story matters, no life is more important than any other life. And you get sort of systems like socialism, and this desire for sort of equality at any cost. Again, all really beautiful. And this idea that sort of we can't survive orange. We can't survive all this orange and the consumerism. And green has a lot of judgment, as you can imagine, about red and blue. These are all within the first tier. And what Wilbur and Beck and Graves explain about the first tier is that there's an intolerance within this first tier for all the other types. Whatever's most dominant in you feels like the only way. And what I think we're trying to get to is the second tier thinking, which is yellow. These colors are totally arbitrary, by the way, which is where we can actually get to the point where we can understand, recognize, value all of these other sort of memes, they call them memes, or levels that are present in the world and present in us as needed at different times. And that we're not denying, disavowing, diminishing any of these levels. that we recognize they all have their time and their place. Yellow is very practical. It recognizes that we need structure and order, which green sort of denies. Green does not like hierarchy. Yellow is more about holarchy, to quote Ken Wilber, nested hierarchies where there's where knowledge is revered, etc. So I think we're trying to get to yellow, and right now what we feel is all of these different levels at play in a way that is chaotic and terrifying because we don't have a system currently. It's not the way that we think where we can hold all this complexity. Anyway, go to my bio, link in bio for the Substack. The piece is called Finding Ourselves on the Spiral. I'm going to do more about this because it's so interesting. This, just to leave you with, he talks about two, like, green rejecting orange, for example, which is sort of growth and capitalism. And he talks about how sort of there are manifestations of all of these levels that are really important. Like orange will theoretically generate the tech that will help us resolve a lot of our environmental woes. But it's all about sort of how these different levels become manifest. And this is what he also says about green. And I say this as someone who definitely would identify myself as like quite green, trying to get to yellow. In terms of green's judgment. So it says green is expensive. It absorbs, this is Beck, rather than contributes. It's expensive to provide for everyone without requiring some kind of contribution other than being present for the handout. Green uses the resources that orange has built, but because it dislikes orange, it backs away from growth. Growth and consumption are bad. It wants to use resources already available and redistribute them so everybody can catch up. Green is a wonderful system, but ironically, it assumes that everyone enjoys the same level of affluence that it has. It goes on, only those people who have been successful in orange, who have good bank accounts, who have some guarantee of survival, who don't have the wolf at the door, will begin to think green. But unfortunately, when green starts launching these attacks on the blue and orange levels, the nuns with rulers and the fat cats in corporate suits, it's like a person who climbs to the top of a house and then throws down the ladder that got him up there. So it's an interesting moment. Anyway, please read this piece. I think we all need to get to the place where we can respect and revere all the levels that are present and understand that they all have their place. All right, thanks for watching. This is a long video.